Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before starting the video, please go ahead and hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Warning: spoilers for Daredevil. Born Again episodes 1 through 8. The season finale for Daredevil. Born Again is nigh, and there are a few developments that would truly send the first season out with a bang. The 9th and final episode of Daredevil. Born Again Season 1 will wrap up the series after the true return to form that was Episode 8. But the series still has a lot of promises to make good on before concluding for a while, and hopefully the season finale can fulfill them. There are still a few key moments from the initial trailers for Daredevil, Born Again that have yet to manifest in the season, promising some tantalizing developments for the tail end of the story. A lot of integration into the larger Marvel Cinematic Universe and mentions of the old Netflix series are also very much on the table, two key areas the show has largely been lacking in up to this point. It's hard to stomach the wait for the season finale to drop on April 15th. 10. A reference to the Netflix Defenders, the old superhero team that the MCU has been silent on for years. Though Charlie Cox's Daredevil has swimmingly made the transition into the Marvel Cinematic Universe, a few other key players from the Netflix continuity have yet to be mentioned at all. The Netflix Defenders were presumably integrated into the MCU at the same time Daredevil, Kingpin, and the Punisher were. After all, a huge portion of those characters' personal history wouldn't make sense if the Defenders were no longer canon to the MCU. But after 8 episodes, Daredevil, Born Again has yet to make even the slightest mention of these heroes. It's unlikely to expect a visit from Luke Cage, Jessica Jones, or Iron Fist at this point in the series, and their sudden inclusion at the end would feel quite jarring after all this time. However, a throwaway line or reference, similar to the nod Ms. Marvel got in Episode 5 thanks to the appearance of Yusuf, would go a long way in the finale. 9. A rematch between Bullseye and Daredevil. The blood feud is sure to continue. One of the most surefire promises the Marvel Cinematic Universe should be able to keep when it comes to the Season 1 finale of Daredevil. Born Again is a rematch between Bullseye and Daredevil in costume. Though Benjamin Poindexter was introduced in Season 3 in the original run of Daredevil, Born Again officially saw his transformation into Bullseye. His initial intense fight with Daredevil after assassinating Foggy Nelson was a gut-wrenching start to the series. In Episode 8, Poindexter finally returned, breaking out of prison in an attempt to murder the man who ruined his life more than Daredevil ever did, Kingpin. He very nearly succeeded, with Matt willing to literally take a bullet for his arch-nemesis. Surely this will set up a much-anticipated round 2 between Bullseye and Daredevil in costume, continuing their now bitter rivalry. 8. The appearance of Bullseye's classic mask has more than earned a comic-accurate look. In the first episode of Daredevil, Born Again, Bullseye appears in costume for the first time, assassinating Foggy and duking it out with Matt. While it's certainly an improvement over Colin Farrell's leather trenchcoat in the early 2000s Daredevil movie, it continues a disappointing trend for Bullseye's costumes in live action. That is, they've never been allowed to feature his most iconic look, his crosshair cowl and mask. By the season finale of Daredevil, Born Again, Bullseye deserves to finally get a bombastic costume representing his full return as a supervillain. How exactly he comes across it shouldn't matter too much, but it might be interesting to see him steal one of Daredevil's costumes with the horns sanded off and paint his own spin on it. It would be incredibly disappointing for Bullseye to end the first season still wearing his generic balaclava mask. 7. The returns and confronts the dirty cops. One returning character from the Netflix series that has already briefly returned is John. Critically acclaimed Daredevil stumbles upon the lair after tracing a bullet casing bearing his distinctive logo, and learns that some fanboys have been appropriating his symbols for their own use. Specifically, Wilson Fisk's dirty cops have taken a liking to the classic Skull, clearly drawing inspiration from real life. The trailers for Daredevil Born Again showed off Frank Castle, returning wearing a more detailed version of his iconic logo on a bulletproof vest, something that didn't manifest in his first brief appearance. Surely this means that Daredevil Born Again hasn't seen the last of him in the first season. The 9th episode should be able to tie up this loose plot thread by giving at least a brief glimpse of the confronting those who would use his image for their own mention of other vigilantes in New York. The city is truly inundated with crime fighters, of course. Daredevil and the Punisher are far from the only vigilantes active in New York City. At multiple points throughout the series thus far, Kingpin has made mention of masked vigilantes as a growing issue in the city, with Daredevil, Swordsman, and White Tiger being a few of the only ones who are directly named. But zooming out on the MCU as a whole, a great deal of superheroes call New York City home. Indeed, it seems as if nearly every street-level character in the MCU operates within the metropolis, including the Netflix Defenders, Kate Bishop, and the newly isolated Spider-Man. The exclusion of the latter's name is a particularly egregious miss on behalf of Daredevil. Born Again, considering how ubiquitous Spider-Man's new presence should be as one of the more powerful and capable New York City heroes. Hopefully, the finale can at least name-drop a couple of other MCU New Yorkers to acknowledge this. 5. BB teaming up with the Commissioner might finally bring Kingpin's horrific actions to light. It's safe to say that Kingpin has already made a lot of enemies during his tenure as New York City's mayor. 2 of them are the young reporter, Bibi Urich, whose uncle was killed by Kingpin in Netflix's Daredevil, and Commissioner Gallo, whose policing power has been strong-armed out from under him by Fisk's task force. Kingpin's black and white ball made the mistake of bringing these 2 people together. At first, it seems as though Bibi has acquiesced to the rise in power of Daniel Blake, whose friendship she was using to get closer to Fisk. Commissioner Gallo criticizes her for contributing to Fisk's propaganda at first, only for her to reveal that her true intentions are published under a pseudonym. It'll be interesting to see how Gall and Bibi work together to bring to light Fisk's criminal past and his corrupt proceedings as mayor. 4. Kingpin learns of Vanessa's hit. The fallout of one of the most shocking reveals of the series. Bullseye's murder of Foggy Nelson never made a ton of sense from a personal perspective. After all, it would make far more sense for him to go after the person who broke his spine, Kingpin. Matt eventually becomes suspicious that Bullseye was hired by someone to strike at Matt and persuade him to stop being a hero by murdering his best friend. At first, Fisk seems like the obvious perpetrator, standing to benefit a lot from Matt's retirement as Daredevil during his tenure as mayor. However, the bombshell ending of Daredevil Born Again Episode 8 revealed that it was actually Vanessa, not Wilson, who instigated this murder. The 2 of them have just seemingly gotten over some serious trust issues. So for Kingpin to learn that Vanessa made such a monumental decision without even telling him will be an interesting development. Hearing Vanessa justify her motivations for putting out the hit will also help fill in some missing puzzle pieces. 3. Karen learns that Matt is back to being Daredevil, possibly reigniting their relationship. If there's one thing Daredevil Born Again can be criticized for, it's promising the return of Foggy and Karen, only to fridge both of them within the first episode. While Foggy at least has the excuse of being dead, Karen's sudden move is apparently motivated by Matt's refusal to return to hero work after the murder of his best friend. This definitely seemed to have driven a wedge in between Karen and Matt, especially when coupled with the latter's ghosting for months at a time. If she were to learn Matt is back in action as Daredevil, it might prompt Karen to return to New York City and reignite her will they with her old friend. Karen's return could prove to be an interesting bit of drama in the wake of Matt's relationship with Heather. Even outside of that, Karen simply deserves to have more screen time than her painfully brief moments in the opening episode. 2. Heather finds out Matt is Daredevil. It's a shock she hasn't by now. Matt Murdock has to have one of the worst-kept secret identities in MCU history. By the time Daredevil, Born Again even started, there were already many people that knew Matt was Daredevil. That number seems to have steadily increased even more over time. Now, Matt's girlfriend, Heather, is the latest person at the precipice of figuring out the truth behind Matt's erratic behavior. With how concerned he is with protecting his secret identity, and Heather has certainly begun to take notice. Between the sudden bruises, lame excuses for being late, and mood swings, it's a wonder she hasn't figured it out already. She likely would have done so when face-to-face with his chin during the Muse fight, if she wasn't already down a couple liters of blood. By the season finale, it would be nice to see this Band-Aid ripped off altogether. 1. Matt quits his law firm. It's clear that Matt's heart isn't in corporate work. Another big change Matt made to his life after the death of his trusted law partner was the start of a new law firm, Murdoch and McDuffie. Selling out of full-time pro bono work for greener pastures, Matt teams up with former colleague Kirsten McDuffie to take on higher-paying cases that don't exactly gel with his ethics as well. With his conscience growing ever heavier, it has become harder for Matt to justify working with McDuffie on clients he deems irredeemable. In the latest episode, Matt lays out his feelings quite precisely to Kirsten, showing his growing contempt for their practice. It seems like it won't be long before Matt leaves the firm altogether, leaving Kirsten to fend for herself to save his own sense of justice. Matt's work as a lawyer here is one element of Daredevil. Born Again that's become harder to justify.